Public Sector Network is a social learning platform designed to help government executives to network, benchmark, and establish best practice. As a registered B Corp, we balance purpose with profit and maintain the highest standards possible for our customers, community, workers, governance, and environment. Our audience spans across 10 distinct communities of practice, showcasing the latest and greatest thinking from these sectors, from both your peers and potential partners. We freely democratize the information available and ensure our members can access it both online and in person to best suit their preferred learning style. Public Sector Network continues to grow our services, remaining committed to our mission of being the #1 trusted resource for government looking to move from good to great. Sign up and see what you can learn from your Public Sector Network.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Public Sector Network's webinar on resident engagement platforms, building equity, accessibility, and sustainability into digital government service. My name is Kamya Sharma. I'm a program manager at Public Sector Network. I would like to start with a few housekeeping announcements. A link to the webinar recording will be shared with you via email. Your microphone has been muted. In case you need any assistance, feel free to message our event manager, Sophie. She will be happy to help you. Please use chat tab to ask questions. This way, others can also see your questions. Speakers will answer your questions at the end of each session if the time permits. So we have some exciting sessions coming up. First, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Jean Nobile, SVP Operations at PayIt. Jean is a talented operations leader with in-depth experience in introducing processes that promote universal adoption and form the backbone of operational excellence. At PayIt, Jean leads operations and customer success teams, prioritizing focus on high-level performance and ultimate attention to client needs. So with that, over to you, Jean.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can run through some slides with you all today. Wonderful. Well, before we dive right in, I'm Jean Nobile, and I have the absolute honor of working with leaders in government across North America every day who need and want to improve the way that they are reaching their residents. They understand and believe that they can transform the operations of their municipality and know that residents will trust them more if their experience is seamless. So, PayIt serves 80 million residents in such a way that bridges a digital divide. It enables sustainable practices in the back office, and it's a powerful tool that can propel agencies to think differently. So we do this through a variety of methods. We have a human-centered design practice, and it is led by an incredible team of researchers, project managers, designers, and people who really study user behavior in such a way that enables us to really improve the experience and a service that comes with our platform. As part of this practice, we've learned that no brand is more important in building trust than that of the municipality. Residents expect to see and hear things from their government, and it's our job to enable you through this platform that is branded just for you. Lastly, we want to make sure that our incentives are aligned, and our model is such that we are successful when you are. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about digital modernization and how it can revolutionize government interactions for residents, putting a multitude of services at residents' fingertips. I think when most people think about basic digital interfaces and payment pages, what we don't talk about is how it leaves many residents behind and falls short of what's required for government agencies to achieve that trust and engagement and efficiency that they're looking for. So we'll talk about this a little bit today and how we can improve those experiences and really make differences in the areas of equity, accessibility, and sustainability. They're all so important to how modern technology increases efficiency in our government organizations, and I'm excited to dig in. So, institutions around the world have done studies that indicate trust in government is at an all-time low. And this is not just in Canada, this is a global trend. One of the most interesting data points in these studies to me is that people don't distrust government because of what they see in the news, but also based on their personal experience. When they need something or paying for something, maybe they're confused. When they have a positive experience, they walk away with super positive feelings, feeling the support of their community, and trust builds over time when things just work. And so, we think a lot about the residents who might not have broadband, who might not have a new modern computer. Maybe their smartphone is their way of accessing the world. There are residents who are not using credit and debit cards because there's that lack of trust. And there are residents who certainly need help accessing these services. There are certain things that are required for a website to be accessible to someone who is unsighted. And so these are all things that we have to really keep in mind. For us to provide a solution that is truly for everyone, we have to be really thoughtful in designing experiences for that underserved population first, recognizing that to be an efficient organization, the government needs to have a solution that truly can serve everyone and enable those residents to avoid the call-in or walk-in experience that's probably difficult for them and likely costly for the municipality. So this human-centered design approach really enables us to constantly be improving experiences. As a customer, you get to hear from the product team on a regular basis about what we're seeing and hearing from your residents in terms of their behavior on the platform. We generate ideas to improve this, reduce friction, and consult with you on these options, and then walk away to do the work. And so this is not at a cost. This is part of this platform mentality that's really needed in this modern age of transitioning the channel shift and moving towards a world where everyone truly can be served digitally. It's also a really fun process. It's more fun to look at the results when we see real meaningful change and when we see feedback from residents who know it's an incredible step forward in serving their community. We talked a little bit about accessibility, and we truly believe that the right thing to do is ensuring our platform is accessible to all users. There are payment pages that truly can't be used by someone who has trouble seeing, and maybe they are using a screen reader to help them that the payment page doesn't support. This is just all too common, and again, it goes back to that decreasing trust and is often a feature that a provider would add last. We don't believe in this. As part of that human-centered design approach, we want to ensure that we're reaching all of those audiences and making it usable. Sustainability was also in the category of things that we talked about, and we as an organization are certainly committed to reducing the environmental impact, but for our agencies, that's a big area of focus. The costliness and then the environmental impact of mailing bills and having people send mail in, all of these things can be enormously reduced in an eco-friendly model where e-billing is a focus, and manual costs for the agency in terms of unstuffing mail and those kinds of things can also be curbed. So as you think about your community and the things that you want to achieve in terms of sustainability, having a digital platform that you can leverage to communicate with your community outside of mail is a huge value. Obviously the last few years have set us on a new path from a technology and reachability standpoint. It makes it imperative that we have the ability to be flexible and provide resources to our citizens that are safe and online. And so in doing so, channel shift is a big thing that we talk about. And having a modern resident experience for all transaction types in an intuitive platform can become your digital front door. And it enables your residents to really engage with you in such a way with bi-directional communication so that they can engage online, pay for things, and move on and just get things done. We design from the standpoint of creating that trust and confidence in you. When we talk about the brand and we talk about making sure to represent your community, consolidating the experiences into that single pane of glass makes it consistent across departments. Most of the end users that we speak with through usability studies and other parts of the human-centered design process would say that they don't understand or know what department they need to interact with in order to get something done. And we believe that they shouldn't have to know. We believe that they should have a place to come where all of their services exist. It knows who they are. and can help them get done what they need to without needing to call anyone, walk into an office, those kinds of things. So in doing so, this shift in the channel usage and driving people towards this digital experience has enormous benefits for the municipality. It enables them to save tremendous money on things like PCI burden. That $18 of transaction is really driven by the PCI, the audit, all of the things that are just taken care of once you have that digital footprint and a provider that takes account for it. So, we want to launch these things quickly and then begin measuring the outcomes for you and your community. The last thing I'll just share is that, by providing self-service and automation capabilities, you're collecting more expediently and it's less human capital. This enables you to free up your resources for more meaningful projects, community initiatives, services that will delight your customers and really change the way that your community interacts with you, again, in that kind of bi-directional way. So that is largely what I wanted to share with you today, just to kick off the theme around sustainability, equity, and accessibility. I might, from there, kick it over to my friend John Telch, who is going to moderate our conversation about the topic.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Jean, for that presentation, and pleased to join everyone on this webinar. So as Jean mentioned, I'm a strategic advisor at Payit, and depending on the day, she has the pleasure or displeasure of partnering with me in our work across North America. Joining us on the panel, and with the caveat that I hope to be immediately corrected if I mispronounce anyone's name, is Silo Medell, the Chief Information Officer at the City of Mississauga, Ron Boaz, who is the Manager of Digital Channels at the City of Vancouver, and Jean, of course, who you just met via that presentation. So I'm going to dive right in with some prepared questions, and if anyone has any additional ones, we'll make sure that we get to them in the chat. Ron, there's a rumor that West Coast might be the best coast in Canada. As a lifelong Toronto resident and born and raised Toronto resident, I might disagree, but I'm going to make you the sacrificial lamb to start answering the first question.
Can't deny it.
Beautiful. So this is a question for everyone, and Jean, your perspective will be a little bit different, of course, but every government agency has a goal, a perpetual goal of improving customer service and resident access to digital government services. And what are the top things that residents in Vancouver and then Mississauga are asking for right now?
Yeah, good question. So I think we actually did a opinion survey of Vancouver residents. I think it was in 2020, so it's a few years old now. And we asked them what they wanted from their digital government. It was kind of focused on Vancouver.ca as the one-stop shop for Vancouver services online. And there were kind of three main things we heard from them. One was personalization. So they wanted neighborhood-specific information directly relating to their life and their community, like road closures, events, garbage pickup schedules, anything that is within the purview of the city that we could offer to them and meet them where they are. Back to the sort of human-centered design, we need to be looking at what is going to be immediately relevant to our citizens. So that was a big one. The next one was search. They wanted a better search experience. And sorry, again, this was back in 2020. This was before AI and all the sort of new GBT technology we have. And I can imagine now that this would be even more important, not just about filtering and sorting, but about really being able to deliver information immediately to the user without having to navigate through multiple pages and search for the information. And the last thing that has kind of been talked about is this concept of single sign-on, like having one platform or at least have one ability to access all your city services through a single login or through a single interface. Because again, the citizen doesn't, frankly, they sometimes don't know the difference between their regional government, their local government, even their province. They just want their water to run. They want their garbage to be picked up. They want, they want things to work. So to that end, and this is something that we're not quite there on at the City of Vancouver. We are working towards it and working with the legacy platforms that we have and the challenges that it brings to connect your back-end systems so that your front-end systems are able to provide that service. And so that was really important for citizens as well, is just have that ability to access everything in one convenient fashion and meet them where they are, whether it's desktop, mobile. Yeah, so I'll stop there.
Excellent. And how about in the city of Mississauga?
Sorry, trying to unmute. Well, with the city of Mississauga, very similar to Vancouver, it's about personalization. It's about seamless access to city services and preferably integrated type of service. But before I go there, let me just correct John. My name is pronounced as Cielo. Sorry. I am the CIO for the city of Mississauga. Just to give a background to everyone, hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Mississauga is the 7th most populous municipality in Canada. It's the 3rd most in Ontario and the 2nd most in Greater Toronto area. And thank you to PSN for inviting me to participate in this most engaging topic about engaging our constituents in the city. Back to you, John.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the correction. I just want to stay on this subject for a moment longer. And I think both of your answers are interesting and timely, but have you noticed a shift in how residents are asking for things or what they're asking for based on what COVID did to the experiences of their daily lives, and that they were able to do a lot more from their home, on their mobile device, on their laptop? Has that entered into the thinking in your cities?
Ron, if you don't mind, I'll start. Yes,
Yeah,
it
sure.
has. I think the residents, the guests have realized that municipalities have responded very quickly during the pandemic, and that increase in the digitization was there. Although the digital divide still exists. Therefore, there's a lot of residents or citizens who cannot necessarily access this technology because they don't have smart technology available currently. But I believe there is a recognition that the municipal government sector are moving towards that direction.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that I think the expectation is definitely, it's accelerated the level to which people participate and through the digital channel, while recognizing there is always going to be some people that need to pick up the phone or go in person, and that's an important channel to always retain. But we are seeing that people experience and expect faster and more convenient service, again, where they are on the run, from home, wherever they are, to be able to complete their service journey online.
John, something I might add is that exactly like Ron said, there are going to be people who still want to come in or want to make a phone call. And I think what we've seen a lot of municipalities focus on is how to make those experiences also digital, right? So we have some communities where they will actually set up iPads in the lobby of their city hall or whatever the case may be, so that citizens can come in, they can self-serve, they can engage with the people in the way that, gives them comfort, maybe even get the paper receipt, but enable them to, still have that digital interaction in a way that enables them to maybe use it in the future and also takes the burden off their frontline staff, right? So there's also this hybrid approach where, serving the people who do want to be in person can be a little flexible.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great segue into the next question, which is, what are the biggest challenges that stand in the way of improving customer service and resident access to digital government services, and where have you seen success? And Cielo, I might start with Mississauga, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's very well. Yeah, there are several challenges that we continue to deal with. I find that one of the biggest challenge that we're dealing with is the way we municipalities are organized. Internal government teams are structured with lines of businesses that are siloed. And it's siloed for a reason, although it creates issues for citizen engagement. Residents and guests need to interact with multiple separate business units to access services. And this silo makes it difficult to build that services to be very interconnected. And of course, aligning an operating model into a very centralized model is not the way to go in the cities and municipalities. But we do continue to arrange our operational capabilities in an integrated and well sequenced way. Now, that being said, in the city of Mississauga, we continuously adopt, advance, and align modernization strategies that again affects our fiscal responsibility. We want to make sure that we balance the needs of the residents and the evolving city. It is not impossible, though, to accomplish this very huge task. It is a big task. And I have seen it done, although it delved on one channel only, which is the face-to-face or counters. In Ontario, Service Ontario, the provincial arm of the province, has moved several disparate services that are delivered through various locations to a more central hub. So, and John, you're from Toronto. So if you visit a Service Ontario site, you can get several services in the same location, such as your health card, your driver's license at the same time. And I think their digital journey, as well as their contact center journey, is following suit. But they started with that, which is most important. And the city of Mississauga is starting to think in that model as well.
Excellent. And Ron, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Cielo. I think I can relate to a lot of what you've just spoken to, and I guess a few things I can add. I guess time and money is one thing that's always a challenge, right? We launched the new mobile app in August, Van 311, our service request app, and because it was high profile, we were fortunate enough to be able to do some user testing with community members, and we got some great feedback from that. We don't always have the opportunity to do that. So that's always a bit of a challenge. Also, just the way that our budgets are structured. And I think this is relevant to a lot of municipalities where you'll have a large capital budget for large infrastructure projects, but IT and technology is moving more to, to a subscription model. And so trying to find a way to kind of get the, it's like we have the money, but it's not in the right buckets, and working with our finance teams and finding ways that we, don't need to spend as much money up front, but we are going to then need to spend money kind of on an ongoing basis with new services and products as we try to, improve that experience for our residents.
Excellent. This bridges the gap nicely to our next question, which I think, really echoes some of the first comments we had about, post-pandemic, how are residents thinking and how are your agencies thinking? But what keeps you and your bosses up at night? Are there operational constraints? Are they budget constraints? Maybe budget shortfalls caused by a small virus that took over our lives for a little bit of time there? Or things that, your office is looking to technology to alleviate? And maybe Ron, I'm going to put you on the spot and start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but the first thing that came to mind, and the reason why this is relevant is, so we did a cybersecurity tabletop exercise actually just last week, and it was a ransomware attack, and it was a great exercise with folks from IT, but also from across the organization in privacy, communications, and I think the big takeaway there, and I'm sure this is what keeps my bosses up at night, was that it was not just an IT problem. It was an entire organization problem that brought the entire organization to a halt. And, very happy that this was just an exercise. But I think the takeaway was to do these exercises and these tests before it happens and have plans in place, because you're only going to have maybe 48 hours to be making, some of the most challenging decisions you'll probably make in your career. And so that was kind of a big enlightening thing for me.
Excellent. And Cielo, how about in Mississauga?
There are many, many things that keep me up at night. Biggest one these days in the political agenda, a lot of you might have heard about the Mexit, the municipal exit from the region, of which we've heard that the provincial government is supporting. So it's something that's exciting in the city of Mississauga, but of course, we know there's a lot of work that will happen after that, right? Bringing the services in within the city of Mississauga. On the IT side, though, on the information technology side, there are many factors that keep me up at night, including budgetary constraints. There is more digitization required than the funding or resources available. I think that's true in every organization. And constraints to quick implementation is there. Some other things that I can think of is, well, the idea of losing control as we migrate to the cloud, ensuring customer data is protected, and making sure we do not lose the trust of our residents and guests. And of course, the ever-changing climate in cyber. It is very important for the city to protect our data. Everybody knows that. And I think every government, because that's the heart and soul of building trust and being transparent for the residents, right? We also need to make sure we know where the data is all the time. So adoption for cloud technologies is a challenge. And as Ron mentioned, the shift from traditional capital funding to operating funding, it's becoming more a challenge for us, right? How do we migrate to the cloud with subscription, forcing us to fund it through our municipal tax base, right? So it's a very challenging one. And at this city, we try to reduce costs by looking at things like using open source platform. Of course, they have to be secure. Looking at reducing our in-person services while we're trying to increase our digital services footprint, right? And of course, focus on customer experience, engagement, for services that are accessible, convenient, and making sure that these services have a connected pathway. A lot of challenges to bring forth all of this in front.
So a pretty quick, easy, and straightforward job, you would say.
That is right. Yeah.
Jean, I'm gonna throw it to you for a second. As you're working across North America with provinces, with states, with small municipalities, big, and everything in between. Are there themes that you're picking up from this kind of question that are pretty consistent across the region?
Absolutely. I would say the budgetary example is pretty strong. And I think most municipalities are looking for solutions that can kind of fund themselves in such a way, right? And I think that's an area where I think we like to engage and understand and find ways to support. I think our team sees all of these themes that you're talking about, and it's part of why we do what we do, because we know that communities and the things we love about life can't happen without local government. And so all of these constraints are things that we want to help support and find a way to do in such a way that is possible. The cybersecurity element is super common, and everybody should be thinking about that, right? I think, from our lens, security is a journey that you're never done with, right? You can never plant the flag and be done. It's always something that's evolving because, bad actors are always trying for the next thing, right? And so these are super common themes. And I think we want to find solutions, again, that really can help support, the public servants who are doing the hard work to make our communities run every day.
Excellent. So for everyone participating today, if you're going to drop a question into the chat, please do so at your leisure and let me know where you're from so I can proudly announce your question. But before we get to those, I want to sort of drill down on accessibility and equitable access for a moment, because Jean did cover that in her presentation. And, as we all work in government, with government, partner with government, for government in some way, there are a million different ways that a direction for IT and technology can go. It can be politically motivated. It could be a campaign promise. It could be a strategic direction after completing 3 years worth of internal reporting and customer surveys and resident surveys. So we know that digital solutions can help eliminate some barriers to accessing and paying for many government services, but we know that simply making them available online isn't enough. So can you share examples of how your teams are working to improve equitable access to your services? And I'll let anyone jump in who wants to tackle that first.
Sure.
Maybe I can start it local, closer to you, John. I'll start with the city of Mississauga. There is a recognition that as we put forward digital solution, the divide is getting wider and bigger for residents. And so we have to make sure that we provide services, not just in its digital form, but looking at other forms of access is imperative. Technically, though, to address the digital divide in the city of Mississauga, we have been providing free wireless service in most communities, parks, and libraries and the city is lucky this way. It has been designed with its own fiber network. So we are able to give access to residents with free internet services kind of model. The city libraries are continuing to expand and grow, and they are providing technologies that the residents may not have them at home. And these technologies can be used for learning, for jobs, even leisure, such as gaming. So we ensure that there's the method to access the services as we move towards digital. And as part of that, we ensure also that the services we design are accessible. Following AODA in Ontario, it's a law to make sure that services are equitable and accessible, because it's a human right to make sure that people have access to those things. In the city, we also have technologies that help, visualization technologies, for example, that help real-time information be shared with people through a lot of this. Even our platform for engagement that we have a couple that we do that allows us to render 3D or CAD drawings for development projects to entice residents and guests to participate during those conversation is important. So we invest a lot on those type of technologies that provide different forms of access. Ron?
Yeah, I'll build on that. That's so important to have sort of tangible examples of what a building is going to look like that's going to pop up in my neighborhood soon. And on our resident engagement platform, we also have the planner who's associated with the project, a picture of them, their email, their phone, to just make it really accessible for people to reach out if they want more information. But stepping back, just on the topic of accessibility and inclusivity, it's really important to us. And one stat in Vancouver, about 44% of Vancouver residents have a home language other than English. So that really just highlights the importance to have your services available in other languages. And to go back to that opinion survey I was talking about earlier, different languages was the lowest ranked thing on that survey at the time that we did it. And we thought, that's interesting. And then we realized, well, we'd only put that survey out in English. So this goes to show that, you can miss really important things if you're not actually going out to the community. You need to talk to people. You need to meet people where they are and learn the barriers that they're facing that may be unique to that particular group, and then work with them to find a way to get them online, whether it's access to computer terminals, whether it's language barriers, whether it is accessibility and not adhering to WCAG accessibility standards that have been talked about that are really important for people with screen readers. So yeah, all these things can really help bring our services to people.
Excellent. I'm going to just echo that with a bit of an addition from the chat. So Solomon, thank you for providing a question. I'm going to alter it just a little bit. Do Vancouver and/or Mississauga have dedicated service design or human-centered design teams? As without those kind of teams dedicated to this kind of work and developing those frameworks, achieving something tangible could be difficult. And what I would also ask, if you happen to know, if you do have those teams, how did they come to being? What led to their creation? I think that would be interesting for our folks to know as well.
Sure, I can take that one up. We do have a team of user experience strategists, we call them, that do sort of service design, customer experience. And it started off a number of years ago with really just one person who was on our content strategy team that prepares content for Vancouver.ca, and they were taking more of an interest in user design and accessibility and UX. And it ultimately ended up in their role kind of shifting, and over time they became, we reclassed their position. They became a UX strategist, and then it's history from there. It's kind of just grown as this need for that human-centered design has grown. So we are very fortunate that we do now have a team of about 5 UX strategists. One challenge, I would say, is that we are still internally working to make that part of all new projects. We're not always included. So that's, the challenge that we face, is getting them involved early. Because when they get involved late, it just becomes a checkbox exercise. Does this button look good? Is this, and it's not about that. It's about the entire user journey. And so that's our kind of current struggle right now, is to get involved early and have an impact where we'll actually be able to provide the most value.
And if I could add on to that, in the city of Mississauga, we do have a dedicated team as well. It started in around 2018 when the customer experience strategy was brought to life. And the group, I think there's like 3 or 4 people, and they sit with our StratCom, imagine that, our strategic communications group, in partnership with us in IT. So there's 2 groups that look after that. There's digital services within IT, and then there's one in StratCom. And it's a group that governs all the work related to Mississauga.ca. They work together closely, but also we're trying to infuse that within our internal applications as well for employee experience, right? Because it is imperative that we look after the residents as well as internal employees as well.
Excellent, thank you. One more question from the chat before we get back to the prepared questions. For services that require authentication, wow, that was a hard word to say. What is the plan, or do you have any plans for biometric authentication, such as voice, fingerprint, iris scan, facial scanning? Jean, I could throw this to you as well if you're having any conversations about this, or if this has been proposed to you in any of your relationships across the region as well.
Sure. I think, to be honest, a lot of the municipalities we work with, they certainly like the idea of single sign-on, and they like that they can get that for free with our platform, right? I think when it comes to these other, authentication methods, it's similar to something that Ron said earlier. It kind of falls down on the list of priorities for residents. I think, residents want to be able to access more services online. They want it to be accessible. They want it to be in the language that matters to them, right? I think, they also want payment plans. They want the ability to, spread their payments across time and have different ways of paying, whether it's Apple Pay or Google Pay or, PayPal, those kinds of things. And so what I have seen is that the biometric element of it just kind of falls down in the priority list and is not as high of a priority for people. But then there's other elements that can make things more secure. There's multi-factor authentication. That's, a step that we have taken where, you can offer kind of that next level of security beyond password constraints and those kinds of things. So that's largely what I'm seeing, but, curious to hear what, Vancouver and Mississauga are seeing here in their communities, if that's something that's a big priority for their residents.
I can start on that one, Ron. For Mississauga, the conversation around digital identity in general is still a conversation.
Yes.
It hasn't moved past that. It's a very difficult topic. I suppose it's the size of the country. It's a topic at both federal, provincial, municipal government. And there's no strategy yet that allows us to move forward with that. It's a very difficult one to address. And I was in the province of Ontario before, and even on healthcare. It's a big topic, but still very difficult to implement. So while we're doing that, it now becomes sort of an activity within an organization, in this case, municipal sector within Mississauga, for us to address how do we enable single sign-on, right, in the absence of an integrated method within the province or other municipalities. How do we make sure we share data, right? We have open data available, and yet we can't identify residents and to provide them better service kind of model. So it is still in the works. I don't know how fast it will come in future years, but it's still a difficult topic at this time.
Yeah,
Perfect.
for us, I guess there's internal kind of partnerships with external agencies and the general public. So internal, yes, we use VPN, MFA. For partners, and even when we're interacting with developers on permitting type of functions, we do require them now to use MFA. So they're logging into our system and they're MFAing it. When it comes to the general public, I don't think that's the route we would want to take. And like Cielo said, this is still a conversation at this point where we do eventually want to align our backend systems to provide that unified login. And another thing we found from the survey I keep referencing was that while people really wanted this idea of a single sign-on, more than half of the people that had said they wanted this didn't want to log in with a commercial login service like a Facebook or a Google login, which was interesting. So they view their government relationship as being different or separate or non-commercial. So we are looking to and have had some conversations with the province of BC around the BC service card digital identity, which currently exists. And so for us in Vancouver, that's likely the path we will take when we're kind of ready to start looking at how we can integrate with a recognized digital identity.
Yeah, and we know that in the federal government, they're more advanced than most of us in the lower governments, right? So you can see CRA partnering with the banks in applying those identities. So we can only hope at this time that we'll move forward with that path as well, similar path as the federal.
Yeah, I think, something that I see that reinforces that is just the cost prohibitive nature of some of these things. I think that, part of what I hear and see is like there's this desire or intent to achieve a single sign-on, and it sounds like a great thing, but when the municipality goes to engage an identity provider, it becomes incredibly cost prohibitive. And so, I think finding a solution that maybe includes single sign-on and accomplishes other things is probably the path that I see most often. But certainly the identity on its own is something that is just very costly, and without a broader strategy around it, the value is hard to really feel and see.
Perfect. So I'm going to change gears just a little bit, as Jean, you covered it in your presentation on a couple slides, in asking you all how your government offices think about sustainability. Do you have goals for sustainability that are aligned with the work that you're doing, or have you heard from residents that is something that they're interested in? So maybe Ron, I can start with you if that's all right. If you have any thoughts to that.
Yeah, good question. And sustainability is definitely important. I don't know if I'm the right person in my organization to speak to it. I know that IT has enabled the reduction in paper use, has enabled the even just commuting pollution to be reduced as we all work from home. So I can think of a number of ways in which technology, and that's kind of our role within the organization, is to improve and the efficiency of people's work with technology. So in some of those ways, that's how we can contribute to a more sustainable future for us.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, for the city of Mississauga, sustainability is one of our key attributes that we want to make sure exist in everything we do. From as we do hybrid work, and we minimize access to paper, as Ron highlighted, right, and printers, to the footprint within the buildings that we have, and putting technologies that are we can evergreen is critical. And we have also applied several technologies like IoT devices in a lot of our services, such as transit. For example, if you see the transit in the city of Mississauga, it's a very high-tech type of transit where we can get data as people use the services, so we can improve the services better. So we apply a lot of sustainable technologies and processes, I would say, in providing the services, not just technology services, but services for residents as a whole.
You know, something that I have noticed is many of our clients that we work with, they use kind of a go green, you know, messaging. Like for them, their residents are very attached to this idea of sustainability. And so they want to encourage exactly what you both have referenced in terms of, you know, environmental impact of the commute or signing up for e-billing, those kinds of things. They want to promote that within their community with a Go Green campaign. There's you know, efficiency and cost savings in doing so, but then also there is the community impact. And so we see it a lot from a communication standpoint, in that, you know, the IT teams typically absolutely support it from a delivery, but the communications team really enjoys to highlight it. And so I think, you know, that's obviously something we have seen a lot in the city of Toronto and really across the continent.
Great. Shifting gears once again, you know, we think in this realm, in this work of front end systems and back end systems, and there's an adage that, you know, you can't modernize one without the other. And my question to all of you is, A, is that true? And what has been your experience, whether successes or challenges, in approaching that at times Herculean task of having to modernize both? And maybe Cielo, I'll start with you if that's okay.
Thank you, John. It is a Herculean job. Yes, it is. So the transformation journey for the city, as I mentioned, began in 2018, and it was very focused in creating people-centric digital services. What we have done is move away from the big platforms or monolithic application approach, and we adopted microservices to allow us to go fast with the speed. Now, although in saying that, the approach in handling the front end and the back end is still separate. It's still being handled it's not a very seamless model. And addressing the access to services, which we know is beyond digital, that we know that the resident should be able to have the same experience in all forms, whether it's through counters, through 311 or call center, as well as digital. So it is becoming very imperative that we look at the front end and the back end. Good news for us is there is a recognition that in the city, the need for focusing on customer experience as well as employee experience to make sure that as residents put in their requests, the back end services flow through. And it's not a frustrating journey for both in and out kind of model, right? So we are starting to embark on that one in creating that model that with the siloed organization, we're trying to bring lines of businesses together. And so that we can prioritize how do we make our digital service more efficient, and it links up to our internal services as well. So it's a big organization that you need to deal with because it's pretty much every line of business that you need to bring to the table, right? And within IT, we needed to look at our operating model. Our operating model had to be reviewed on an ongoing basis as disruptors, just like the pandemic happened. How do we support those ever-changing needs of the organization in its service delivery? So we, aside from changing the strategy around customer experience and employee experience, we are focusing on enterprise technology architecture that may include low-code platforms, as well as looking at our strategy around cloud-based solution. We need to support the modernization agenda, and the only way we can do that is preparing ourselves to be ahead of the game, so that as we develop these strategies for customer and employee experience, the technology side could respond to it very easily and quickly, because we know it's going to change. That's where we're at. How about Vancouver, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you have old systems, we find ways to integrate them where we need to, but it's not often easily, reproducible or migratable. And we are moving to, we need to have API management and governance and be able to connect our systems more seamlessly so that those integrations don't break, at least as easily or as often. So it's kind of an ongoing journey for us, and I do think it's critical to integrate those internal systems and have them talk to each other, and be able to, just kind of on a side note, like the data from all these systems, being able to bring them into a common data lake or warehouse to be able to look at your data at a system-wide level and make strategic decisions, and not just be looking at things in silos. So it's an ongoing journey.
I might add, something that we see is that the idea of front end and back end having to move at the same time or in parallel is not tenable, right? Like, I think most of the communities we work with, that would not be an achievable goal to set, like that both need to move together. I think, most agencies have so many different systems that do contain various data points that probably need to come together at some point. Like Ron alluded to, I think there's this journey of how do you take steps, how do you be incremental in taking steps that improve, and find providers that can pull things together for you. I think from the beginning, we saw this trend where the back office systems aged more aggressively than the front end, right? Because there was pressure to make the front end experience good for residents. And I think what that created, and I guess maybe in Mississauga as well as you alluded to this, was that like the agency user experience suffered, right? The people who were managing the systems didn't get the same benefits that maybe some of the residents did. And so, we really focus on the ability to integrate with these various systems in the back office to create both that agency and that citizen experience. I think it's important that you enable people to manage the systems without creating an environment where you have to replace 10 mainframes in the next several years, right? Like for most communities, that's not a tenable thing, and it's a longer journey than that. And so the idea that you would have to wait and do them together, I think, is maybe a false choice, and that it's just not possible, and there's too much to go do it all at once. And so that, that's a big area of focus for us, of like, how do we build consistent integration layers that enable us to talk to different systems and expose that single pane of glass for both residents and agencies so that they can see and experience the compelling experiences that are infused with the right data. I think the data really drives a lot of relevance for those experiences. And so if you're missing data points or there's, data quality issues, that's just where, the things get hung up. So I think it is really important that they move independently. And Silo, you're smiling. I don't know if you can relate or if you have additional thoughts.
That has been the journey so far. Both when I was in the city of Toronto, I came from there, and Mississauga as well, right? But I think it's high time for organizations to start thinking differently, finding tactical ways on how do you migrate. Guaranteed you cannot migrate the monolithic, all sets of services all at the same time. So you have to find ways to sort of migrate them together, potentially service by service. Maybe that's, and as I said, we're just in that journey of identifying the how. But I'm sure with partnerships with our vendor community, and if there's a real imperative within the organization to let's look at it together to streamline the work for external and internal to make it seamless for both, and maybe it will speed service delivery. Will be the I think you have to find that specific problem that you're solving that would really push the agenda for you to do it. It is difficult. It's not, I'm not saying it's easy, but finding that potential method is critical for all of us right now.
Great. Well, in the vein of doing things differently, my question to you all is, we've just discussed this sort of at the top end of this session of residents, constituents, for the most part, have a different view now of how they want to interact with government. They have a a different view of how business should be done online. For example, they've made the decision they're not cooking tonight, they're too busy, whatever the reason might be, it's time for Uber Eats. It's a 30-second interaction and off they go. And they have expectations of government, replicating those same interactions, that same journey. What advice can you offer agencies as they seek to create this more consumer-like experience, or for residents seeking seamless online experiences with interfacing with government? And Ron, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. So I think, and what we try to do in Vancouver is we try to establish digital design principles that have the end user in mind and let those drive the development of a product or a service. So like these are really high level things, like time is valuable, start with user needs, help users avoid errors, consistency builds trust, accessibility is fundamental. And the idea is to come in with these digital design principles to the project team at the very onset and get everyone to agree to them. And if you're able to get in early enough, it's not that hard to get people to agree because they all just make sense. They're common sense things. But what that does is if you get buy-in in the beginning, then you can keep referencing them over the lifespan of the development of that service. And people are going to always want to, well, this would be, if we did this or this, it'll be easier for our staff. But then you go, no, it might be easier for your 5 staff, but what about the hundreds of people that are going to suffer if we do it this way down the line? And it just allows you to keep referencing these user-centered design principles. And that's what you got to do. You got to just keep the user in mind, because that is what people have come to expect. That's what's out there in the commercial world, because as a profit-seeking organization, you're always going to be looking at what's going to acquire and retain our customers, and we can sometimes lose sight of that, and that's what we can't allow to happen. We need to be always thinking about the user and what's going to make things easier for them.
Yeah, Ron, we have a very similar mentality around that, in that it gives you a North Star so that anytime something comes up, you can go back and say, like, okay, does this fulfill these principles? And it really keeps things on the rails, right? It really keeps us reminded about where we're going and what's important. And so I think, the ones you listed are incredible and very similar to the way we think about it.
Yeah, and I concur 100%. User-centric design, which starts from listening, having the voice of the customer, giving them the platform to participate and engage them in the build, and getting their feedback. And when I talk about user, for me, it's both, again, residents, guests, and internal users, the employees, right, that are affected by all of this. So having that balance, also going small chunks, quick, make mistakes, and get that feedback, because that's the only way you're going to make it better, as opposed to thinking big and trying to solve the entire big problem is a difficult one. So trying to move as quickly as possible in small chunks, getting that voice of the customer and feedback is critical. Is what I would suggest. We all do.
Perfect. Well, I think that's probably a good place to pause and wrap up. And I want to thank the three of you for joining me today. I've done this quite a few times, and I don't think I've ever had an easier group of people to put questions to and interact to. You're clearly all experts, and I want to thank you for taking the time, and those who attended and participated in the chat. And with that, I will turn it over to PSN to wrap us up.
Thank you, John, for moderating the panel. This was great. Thanks to all of our speakers and to all of the audience for taking the time out of the week to attend the event. And special thanks to PAID for partnering with us for this event. So these are some of our upcoming events, and it will be great if you can join us for these in-person and online events. We have Persuasive Leadership for Public Sector. It will take place online on May 21 and 24. Then we have Data Management and Analytics Roadshow. This is going to take place in person and online from June 1 to June 15. You will find these details on our website. We have Police Innovation Showcase. This is going to be in person in Toronto. We look forward to welcoming you all to all these events. Thank you again for your time, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.